Hey, how's it going, guys? Welcome back. And today we're about to talk about Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. And this movie obviously is 2 weeks in, so this is the final review of this incredible movie. But before we do that, I want to do a quick recap of the three previous movies that came before it. Now, if you're unaware, that there were three movies that came before that: Rise of the Planet of the Apes, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, and War of the Planet of the Apes. Now, these three movies, directed by Matt Reeves, were incredible movies, outstanding movies. Collectively, did over $1.5 billion actually in the box office, and they were highly successful. And they started off with Rise of the Planet of the Apes, where you saw Caesar, right, who's the main character, happens to be an ape, and the story, especially in the beginning, it was these scientists were trying to come up with a drug that would actually help people with Alzheimer's, right? Try to help them regain, especially when it comes to their mental capacity. Because if you understand what dementia and Alzheimer's does, you know exactly what they were trying to do, and they try to do this by trying to make apes smarter. So they develop these drugs, try to help apes get smarter. Caesar, who happens to be an ape, actually inherited these genetical traits that came from this drug from his mom. Say when his mom gave birth, she ended up dying from this experimentation. Caesar grew up, was raised by one of those scientists, and he started growing mentally, started gaining his higher thinking like human beings do. And as a result, throughout the story, as he grows up, he starts realizing that I'm actually smarter. Ends up being, unfortunately, held up in an animal shelter because he ended up biting one of the neighbors in terms of where he lived. And in this location, he happened to be around other apes, and he instantly knew that he was very, very smart. He understood it, but he also knew that he was smarter because of what was done to him. So he ended up trying to help them, exposing them to this drug. They ended up gaining this higher thinking, and they escape, end up in the redwoods. Comes Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, where now it's years later. They've evolved. These apes have built a community where, in the redwoods, right? Where now Caesar is older, he's more mature. You can see him. He has a family, he has a son, his wife gives birth. They're going through everything you would assume we actually go through as human beings. They end up interacting with humans who are trying to actually restart a dam because they actually want power. This creates conflict. Caesar, who's very humble, Caesar who actually understands that there needs to be a balance between human beings and apes, because he knows that conflict would lead to nothing but destruction, not only on his side but on both sides. And his side is going to lose a lot more because human beings have way more firepower. Caesar's basically mission is to try and do what he can to always have peace. And that doesn't go well because within his ranks, you have an ape called Koba, who, because of what was done to him, he was experimented on. He's very disfigured as a result of it. Has so much animosity towards human beings. He decides, you know what, I'm about to take over, because I can't really abide by this. You want to be friendly with human beings. I want them to be subservient to us. And as a result, Koba ends up shooting, almost killing Caesar, and ends up enslaving human beings. And as the story goes, Caesar regains his strength, ends up killing Koba, regaining his leadership status. But because of all of this now triggered a war that he knew was coming. Human beings were always going to retaliate. But also something that came about from this is we also learned that this drug that made apes smarter created a virus that actually now infected human beings. And for a lot of human beings died, because in Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, we realized there are now smaller numbers of people in different camps all over the world, because this drug really ran across everything, killed a lot of human beings. But the ones that actually now were left were immune to this virus, right? But they all carried it, but they were immune to it. Now, moving forward to War of the Planet of the Apes, now, obviously, now their community is well established, right? They're way more mature. They're way more structured. And like we said before, they knew a war was coming. So this military general, played by Woody Harrelson, basically was looking for Caesar and Caesar's base. And they found him, and unfortunately, as a result, ended up killing Caesar's family. Caesar's family, his wife, his son, and this now created Caesar, who's always been very merciful, who's always been very patient, who's always been humble, and it created this vengeance. He became very vengeful. And as a result, because of this, he decided, I'm going to go after this general. And throughout the whole story, you end up realizing that the general now captures his apes. Caesar ends up being captured. And you end up realizing that these two characters, the general and Caesar, are very determined in their missions, right? Because Caesar wants to avenge his family, save his apes. But the general, funny enough, is actually, you can say he's AWOL from the actual military structure, right? And the reason he is because he ended up realizing that this virus that affected human beings, that every human being was carrying, right, had evolved. And had evolved in the sense that it started affecting people in different ways, including his son, who the symptoms were crazy because he lost his higher thinking, he lost his speech. It's almost like reverting back to infancy. And he realized that once it infects somebody, they all end up carrying or having these traits. They're all kind of like they're losing their humanity. And he decided he wanted to do something about it. His peers, his generals, his leaders didn't want him to do that because he was killing human beings. So he runs away and he creates a conflict between them. But at the same time, he still wants to kill apes. So he's doing two things at the same time, but he believes this is his mission, which obviously creates conflict. And here we are with Caesar and him coming together, and at the same time, he's being attacked by the actual military forces that he was supposed to be working with. Now he's working against. Now, obviously, this conflict on two fronts wasn't really going well, but this general, played by Woody Harrelson, a really, really good cast as the general. He's basically enslaved apes, and he's using apes to build his military base. And obviously, this doesn't sit well with Caesar. Caesar understands that, you know what, I need my apes out of here. They're being mistreated. But at the same time, he's so vengeful that his sole mission right now is to kill this man who basically destroyed his entire family. And as the movie goes along, this war ensues. Now, this is war on two fronts, right? He's fighting these apes with whom he's actually enslaved, but at the same time, he's basically fighting now military forces that have now caught up to him, right? Now, there are certain apes that actually work for these humans, meaning they actually work against apes, which is really crazy to see, but it's an outstanding dynamic to fully understand because even if you watch those old school classic Planet of the Apes movies, you actually saw that. You saw that they were apes that actually defected and actually worked with humans against apes. So it's really good to see it. But at the end, Caesar was able to save his apes, and the general actually ended up succumbing to this virus, right? And Caesar had the opportunity to kill him, right? Because that was his whole mission, right? He wanted to kill him. But he showed him mercy because once he realized that this figure of a man, right? This man who had basically turned his whole life around was now merely a shell of himself because of this virus. Caesar chose to show him mercy and he left. But unfortunately, throughout this process, he got shot. But he was able to basically take his apes to an area where he believed they would be safe, but unfortunately succumbed to the bullet. So that's where War of the Planet of the Apes ended. Coming to Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, it actually started from that scene. And that's why I love this movie. I really do. These three movies were outstanding. And I always say, because again, this is a continuation. This is not a new story. This is a continuation from where they left off. And I was afraid that they would do something and destroy that legacy, those legacy of those movies that came. But this was an outstanding movie. It really was in every aspect. I'm not really going to give out spoilers because I really want you guys to go see it. But I love the fact that they picked up from where they left off. And they actually captured the essence of all three of those movies. They actually if you know anything about the first three movies, they were this growth. We grew up with Caesar. We saw him from the moment he was born, grow up, and really now starting to understand his high thinking. To the first time he said his first couple of words, he said no strongly, where he was basically rebelling against a human being trying to hurt him. And then at the end of that movie, in Rise of the Planet of the Apes, he tells his friend, Caesar is home, right? Because now he's with his apes and he's in the redwoods. To the second movie, where you see speech has basically is enhanced, and it has grown and developed and evolved to where now they're talking, they're speaking, making complete sentences at the same time, communicating with sign languages. So you're seeing them evolve to the third movie, where they've absolutely evolved and grown to where the majority of the apes can actually communicate and talk. You saw Caesar grow, all of this, right? And then you see it in Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, where now this has come full circle, where it's an actual Planet of the Apes, where now human beings are way more minority than they were. The majority of them are dead. This virus that came through and wiped out, now the human beings that are remain, they're in way smaller numbers. But in this movie, you get to see, now again, this is how I kind of see it. We started off as human beings being the top of the food chain. Human beings having higher thinking. Apes are naturally smart, nowhere near human beings. But in the first movie, human beings were here. And then you start seeing apes now having higher thinking. By War of the Planet of the Apes, apes are here, okay? Right where human beings are. So they're actually the same when it comes to higher thinking. Now in Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, apes are here, human beings are here. But I love the story because you start seeing this. You start seeing, yes, there are human beings that now, like with any virus, at the end of the day, you will find resistance, right? You always find people that resist and build this immunity. And this is exactly what's going to happen in Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Now, you got to watch it to actually understand it. You got to watch the story. You got to watch this new character that looks like Caesar when Caesar was in Rise of the Planet of the Apes. Similar. You see these communities of apes. You see the conflict that they have between each other. You see the differences. You see how Caesar's mission and philosophy has been distorted. And some of these apes are using Caesar's name, but in a different way. They're using Caesar's name to be very violent. It's kind of like when people use certain things to fit their narrative. So they're using Caesar's philosophy. They're using Caesar's teachings and his mission to fit what they're trying to do, even though they're really hurting not only their own apes, they're hurting the cause, because now they're creating way more conflict than before because they want leadership, they want control. And I really want to say exactly what happens in this movie, but I really want you guys to go see it because it's an outstanding movie, well casted, well written, well directed. The visuals are outstanding. You can tell that they didn't cheapen out on CGI because they look amazing. And it's a movie that I could say take your entire family, go watch. You will absolutely fall in love with this movie. And I can't wait to see the next two movies, because again, there are two movies coming after this. Because if this movie is an indication of what they're about to do, I can't wait to see the other movies. Now, actually, there are 9. It's about to be like a 9 movie series or 9, whatever. I don't know how to put it. There are about to be 9 movies in total, but the first 2 will come out. I think that the sequel to this movie will come out either end of next year, the year before, the year after, sorry. But I can't wait to see where they're going, because if this movie and if this is a plot they're going to, I can't wait to see it. I really can't wait. So if you haven't watched Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, go watch it. If you haven't watched the previous 3, I'd say watch them first before you watch this movie, because you need to catch up. You need to understand the story of Caesar. You need to understand what he meant, right, to the apes. That's the only way you're actually going to understand Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes and where this movie is actually going. But anyway, that is just my 2 cents when it comes to this movie. I hope you guys go see it. I can't wait to see you guys in the comments, see what you guys loved and liked and hated about this movie. I'll see you on the next one. Peace.